today's conversation is with Sharon Ringier. She's the CEO, the founder of I'm Possible Women's Empowerment Collaborative. Sharon is one of the 25 women that WOMEL has identified to be a powerful woman to watch March 2021. Welcome to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. This podcast was created for the boomer woman leaving corporate, and now you're looking to reinvent yourself, become an author, an entrepreneur, a podcaster. Well, each episode will leave you with clarity. You will come away with the yes, I can and yes, I will reinvent myself mindset. So come on, let's do this. I'm your host, Margot Levette. I am so glad to be here with Sharon Ringier. She is an entrepreneur, the creator and the founder of I'm Possible Women's Empowerment Collaborative Incorporated. Wonderful to be here with you, Sharon.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Well, I wish that I had hit record earlier, because as we were in what I like to call the green room, we were reflecting upon the fact that your life work is all about empowering women. You yourself, you give from a place of experience. You come from a place of observation, the ups and the downs, the ebbs and the flows, the ins and the outs of female entrepreneurs. So I know that most people say, well, we don't want to hear when I was 5, I realized this. But will you take us back? Because I want the listeners to understand how your past has really been seeded, and it speaks to who you are now and why you were able to create I'm Possible Women's Empowerment Collaborative.
Oh, so starting from the past, to get there, it's like I'm Possible came from a place of one of my favorite quote, nothing is impossible. The word itself says I'm possible. And it's Audrey Hepburn. So I want to give her the credit for that one. But as I was looking at creating the name for it, and as I was reflecting on my grandmother, who was an evangelist minister, everything was about the Bible and scripture. And even in 5th grade, when I took German, I learned Bible verse, Philippians 4:13, where I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And it just made me think about what she taught me as even a young lady. She never was that person that said, I could not do, I could not have, because it was through his grace that it was already mine. So growing up with that kind of love and especially with scripture being scripture based, the name also came from the fact that as I looked at it as women, because I'm still human, as women, we tend to, I am whatever, right? And it's like life and death lie in the power of the tongue. But I looked at it as when Moses went to God and said, who shall I say sent me? God said, I am. And this is all that's embedded in my head from my grandmother. It's like, it was always, I am. And so it was never, I am tired. I never saw that in her as a woman. So I always saw her as being powerful and strong. And she was everyone's mama, and which I got a little jealous sometimes, because you can't call my grandmama mama. But I had to share her because she was like the matriarch of like my friends in my neighborhood and everything. And it was something that I didn't realize was becoming a part of me and what I all of a sudden became. So it's like, even, because my mom was a young mom, she was 17 when she had me. So my mom and I were more like sisters. So, but it's like never seeing my grandmother lose her bearing as far as being the strong, Black, powerful woman. Like she was a force to be reckoned with. Yes. And when I say a force, there were people that were really scared of my grandmother. but it was in a good way. But it was just like, I learned so much from how she raised me.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I still saw things and did things that, and it's not so much did, but I saw things that most children don't see.
Can
Because
you give us, that's interesting. The fact that this woman who is very self-assured, she knows who she is. She's imparting this to a totally different generation. What did you see as a young woman that influenced you so much?
her strength was so, oh my God, I can't even think of a word for it. Her strength was just so empowering. It would, I'll never forget my first surgery that I had on my hip. I had to have pins put in my hip. Um, and my mom just could not deal. And she would get nosebleeds because of the high blood pressure and all of this. She was not dealing with it well. But my grandmother would call every day, and I never understood why she never came to see me. But I called her once because I had a nurse messing with me. And my grandmother goes, okay, baby, you know what? Let me let you go. And it was like that Medea kind of grandmother, too. She's like, baby, let me let you go. Next thing I know, that was the nicest nurse I'd ever met. I found out later that my grandmother basically had threatened her and told her she was going to come up to the hospital. But it was just something to see how she did not want me to see her weakness, which can sometimes be a blessing and a curse too. Because I learned the hard way that weaknesses sometimes, it's not that it's a good thing or a bad thing, but sometimes just relevant to work through.
Mm-hmm.
And she eventually sat me down and talked to me and told me that she didn't come because she did not want me to see her fear.
Oh my. Okay.
And it was something to hear, you were scared. And it blew my mind because I'm like, I've never seen you scared.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll never forget the one time my mom was going through divorce, and my mom's ex-husband came home, and a fight came about, and he got really kind of belligerent, and my grandmother never raised her voice, and she's like, Walter, go sit down, just leave me alone. And he kept on, and he went to storm into the kitchen on her, and she was cooking, boiling some corn. She flung the pot of corn, and back then pots were very sturdy, dented the pot, and went about her business. And then I saw it happening and didn't, as a kid, you just don't see what's happening until it's already over. And what he had done was taken his pants and wrapped it around his hand. And he came because she was coming out because water got on her and it was hot. She came out of the kitchen, and it was like literally, it was like the bedroom's on the side, the kitchen's on the side, and there's a little walkway, and then there's another part of the house. He opened the door to the basement that went along that way as well, and he swung. One time he swung, he hit the door. The other time he hit her in the head. And back then it was the punchers were, the ones that they use on the buses. She didn't miss a beat. She backed up. She went in the kitchen, and when she went to try to call the police, he had picked up the phone. And my grandmother called me, and she's like, you run to the store. And we lived like 3 houses down from 7-Eleven, go call the police. And she stayed. But when I walked in there, she had blood everywhere. And she's like, she was a busty woman. Her entire chest was filled.
Mm.
She never missed a beat. I never saw her. To this day, I see it in my head. And it's like, she wasn't nervous. She wasn't upset. She wasn't crying. And when the police came, they're like, one little cop asked, and I would never forget, he's like, ma'am, do you have a gun or anything in the house? And we did have like a BB kind of gun or whatever it was. And he's like, why didn't you use it? And she's like, I don't want blood on my hands.
Wow.
And it was just like, oh my God. And I think about this now, and it's like, that kind of strength. It's like, it's unheard of now.
Yes, it is.
You know?
Integrity also.
Yes. Yeah.
Major integrity, which is it's sorely missed on so
Oh,
many
yes.
levels. Sharon, as I hear you speak of your grandmother, I have to ask, I'm Impossible Women's Collaborative. You labor to make sure that all of these qualities that she imparted into you are they are present, and they everyone's aware of strength, integrity, all of the members. It's a membership community, correct?
Yes, yes.
Strength, courage, weakness. Are women allowed to, all of these things that your grandmother was, that she was obviously to you and not obviously to you, are women allowed to come and just be who they are? Because I understand that this is also a membership community.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you decide that you would base it up on membership? And what is it like for are they able to come and be their own? I'm trying to put,
Right,
I mean,
right.
you are bred from strong grit, moxie. And how do you present this personification to other women who are coming from all walks of life, I would venture to say?
So the way Impossible started, and they say be careful what you ask for. um, I really just wanted to do something that was, I've always, let me back up. So I love empowering and helping people. That's just who I am. And I had to learn how to not be an enabler and switch it to empowering, those two E's. So I transitioned from that, and I'm like, I want to do a women's empowerment conference to just help elevate women, because prior to that, so my past life was I was an event planner. And then I became chapter president of Event Planners Association, and actually even got a leadership award for that, because I love helping people like basically live their best lives, even in business. And so what was interesting was I decided to do masterminds to help to kind of help promote the conference. And we started doing it like a year in advance, and built, a nice little following. But again, to promote the conference. And we had the conference. Everyone's like, oh, this is great. When do we meet again? And I felt like, have you ever seen little puppies that go, because I'm like, really? And it was like, all right, Lord, if you want me to do this, you're going to have to take weddings off my heart, because this is not what I signed up for. I really just wanted to, it was just something that I've wanted to do because I love helping people. And I wanted to just have that experience of, producing something that was empowering. So I asked actually to say, I'm like, I told everybody, okay, give me a couple months, because I didn't realize that so I was diagnosed with 3 different diseases, and one of them was really exasperated. And I didn't realize, I totally ignored it because of the stress that I was under trying to produce this conference. And then I was also diagnosed. So I was diagnosed with sarcoidosis as well. And I was having pancreatic attacks. I was not addressing either one because, that's part of, you kind of don't take care of yourself. You can take care of everyone else, but you can't take care of yourself, right? Gotcha. So I was producing this and getting it done. By the time the conference came, I could barely walk. Literally was holding on to my counters to walk across my kitchen to go to the bathroom. So I was able to feel a little better. And I got invited to this event by 2 different people, didn't know one another, same event. And had the opportunity to meet this gentleman who, when they introduced him, I was like, this guy sounds like a real life Tony Stark's like Iron Man. And I'm looking like, who is this person? So I get to meet him. We're sitting down talking. And it was hilarious because I'm looking at this guy with glazed over eyes, and I was so exhausted. And he looks at me because I'm thinking, you're too good to be true. You're not real. And he looks at me and he goes, I know you don't believe me.
Wow.
And I was just like, did I just say something out loud? And it's like the messaging that you don't realize that God will speak to you through all kinds of things. And so he looks at this other young lady who's one of my members, and she's just like, he goes, you send her this YouTube, this YouTube, this, so a list of YouTubes. And it was hilarious because I stayed up all night, as exhausted as I was. I stayed up all night trying to find something wrong with this guy. So the next day now I have coffee with him because we could meet with him and he's like, look at me. I'm like, okay. And because he's like, stay focused, give me your phone. And he lets me record our session. And he just literally massaged and made everything come full circle on what it was supposed to look like. Because I was in the process of establishing it, but I didn't have all the answers.
Your mastermind.
And yes, and he's like, so this is a true mastermind. This is what a true mastermind is. It is not facilitated. It is not, I mean, he literally like laid it out. He gave me the verbiage. He goes, when you do your one sheet, this is what you do for your one sheet. And I mean, I've since changed it because it's now my voice. But he literally like helped me understand the premise of it. Because it's like, you always need a coach. A coach always needs a coach. Yes. To kind of give you clarity. And that's what the mastermind is about. It's not about coming and being told what to do. You're getting feedback on what you're already working on so that you can 10x your business. So it was really cool to have him sit down and just kind of help me solidify and massage and come up with a platform for, women. And he goes, you do this, and this will be the start of like something really great, because there's not enough out there. And there's different levels of masterminds. There's some that are really expensive. There's some that are that are even free. It's finding the right fit for you. But it's nice that, the few that are out there, I don't think that there are enough, but the few that are out there, it's like, we need to plug in. We need to stay plugged in. Yes. So, I mean, one of my members is in two. My other one. And I'm like, wow. So it's like, and of course I'm learning the differences between the two. And it's like, I stay in my lane. I want to work with the, emerging and budding entrepreneurs. Because so it's like, you want to go 7 figures, then you look at a mastermind like, the one that she's in. But it's like, this one is for women that are really, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I do have women in here that are making 6-7 figures, but they're using my mastermind for a different reason.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because when we hear mastermind, a lot of times we do not have the correct definition. First of all, let me back it up, because I was so glad to hear you speak on investing in yourself.
Yes.
Too many of us, this is just my opinion, and then I want to hear from you. We want to put out a shingle. We want to get on a podcast. We want to do all of these great things. We take one class and we're the superstar. We're the know-it-all. We never feed what I'm just thinking, okay, your grandmother seeded your ground. What if you just went with what mama gave you? What if you hadn't gone to invest in yourself, get more information, be present and accounted for, so that gentleman could seed into you? I want the listeners to hear the progression of things. You people feed into you, you feed other people, but you keep going so that you can keep expanding and growing. And that calls for investment.
Right.
And different masterminds are at different levels and they function for different purposes. Is that what I hear you saying?
Yes. And I'd like to add something that you said triggered a quote, and I'm just going to paraphrase it. I love what Michelle Obama talks about, where she says, you need 3 friends. And I always say you need 3 people or colleagues. You need a mentor, because again, coaches need coaches, right? So you need a mentor, someone to pull you up.
Yes.
That colleague next to you, you do want to walk that journey with someone, because entrepreneurship is very lonely.
Yeah.
But most of all, you need a mentee, the person behind you. As you're learning from your mentor, you need to be bringing someone up with you.
Yes.
And I think because it's cyclical, right? If we started doing that, instead of being worried about, oh, I can't help her because, she may steal my ideas.
Oh, boy.
It's like, first of all, nothing is brand new. Nothing is brand new. And what's for you is for you.
Yes. Yes. I'm glad you said that, because we shut the door on collaborations. We shut the door on being a part of a mastermind, really emerging ourselves in a mastermind, because I don't want them to know my trade secrets. You're right. There's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
But I can't speak the way Sharon Ringier can. And you're not going to be Margot Levette. That's the beauty of us all being entrepreneurs in our own lane, as I heard you say earlier. But Sharon, I have a question. As far as women and the mastermind. And I know that a non-disclosure, you all signed those waivers, signed those forms. Are there things that you have found that most of us female entrepreneurs, these concerns, these fears, they're just common among us? What's just common among us?
I think the common thread among us is that we tend to feel we can do it all. Mm-hmm. And corporate America has us thinking, church and state. But as a fempreneur, a woman, we've got our personal lives. We've got, so you've got all the family stuff, and then you've got your entrepreneurship stuff, and you're trying to keep it separate, except the dog may come through in the middle of a podcast, and your kid may need, the baby may start crying. And you may have something happen in the midst of it where you lose a loved one. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, how do you cope with all of that on top of what's happening in the society, with social injustice and COVID and, presidential election and, the economy and whatever else jumps off on what given day, and it's like we try so hard to keep it separate. And what I really found interesting with dealing with being a female entrepreneur is no one teaches us how. Mm-hmm. So we come in with, sorry to say, these masculine, we've got to act like a man because we're in a man's world. And I actually had a gentleman one day. I was at a BNI and I was talking, and you get your time to talk. And I was talking about women holding the checkbook, even though, the men are the breadwinners, and because but it all ties into, women's empowerment. And he sits back in his chair, like really leans back, does one of these. Wow. And I'm like, okay, body language showing up. Okay, I've hit a nerve. And he goes, well, women are always trying to compete with men. And I just looked at him and I smiled, tilted my head, like, well, with all due respect, I don't want to compete with men because I birthed them. Yes. And he turned 10 shades of red. He was so pissed because this was a white man that was actually coming at me a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, are you serious? This is like my time to talk. And at the end of the day, it is what it is. But it's my time to talk and you intercede with that. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to take me down, so to speak. That's how I felt. And did I take it personal? I'm going to be perfectly honest. Yeah, I did. But I tell you what, I bet you he won't do that to anyone else again. But I did it with grace because it's like, I'm not going to compete with you. I birthed you.
Yes, yes. But had you not been sure about yourself, who you are, what you bring to the table, you came to that meeting, I'm sure, dressed to the nines, yes, representing, and you know what you know. You represent what you represent, and you stand there. I'm just wondering how many women, because of, and let's just identify this thing of imposter syndrome, because as we spoke off in the green room, the definition varies according to who is, who's leading out the conversation, the mastermind, that type of thing. But I think that at the end of the day, if we don't know who we are, and if we have this wavering back and forth about what we know, and are we good enough? And are they going to think that I just snuck in here and find out that I really don't know what I know? Some of us really, we lose out because we are right there, but you weren't there that day. And I'm so glad. That's always going to be you don't know what other women were in the room who saw you stand in your stead, in your power, in your right that day. And I'll bet good money that there are some women who reflect upon that and say, everybody's not there. But getting back to this thing of moving on to this thing of imposter syndrome, I'm looking at the time. I do want you to touch bases on this. What's your definition of imposter syndrome? What does that have to do with our confidence? And what do we do about this as women?
The best way I can describe it is I'll never forget. I had such a major fixation with this celebrity wedding planner when I was doing my wedding planning. And finally, my son, who is now he's 29, so this was about 10 years ago, he's like, Mom, why do you put her on a pedestal? The only difference I see between you and her is greenbacks. You're just as good as she is. Mind blown that I have a young man, and matter of fact, I think he was even younger than that because he was still living here. My son saw that I was living in that and I was doing comparisons, because you're wanting to be great. And I felt like I didn't have the training because I knew she was a college grad. I am not a college grad, but neither is, I believe, Bill Gates. So it's like, but I had to work on that. But it was just one of those of where it's like, you know what? I am who I am because of the thread I have, not because of a book or someone else's limiting beliefs and their definition of who I should be, but because who I believe I am to be. So that was a major, major eye opener for me. And it really made me start looking at how we look as women at ourselves. And that's why I go back to the I ams, because we tend to, oh, I'm tired, or I've heard this and I've said it, I'm just a mom. And it's like, because when you meet someone that's got on her two-piece silk suit and, her hair is perfect and she's wearing her, Christian Louboutins, and you're looking at her like, and you're doing these like, oh my God, she looks so pretty. And I'm just a mom. Look, your job as a mom is more important than her VP job.
Yes.
Because what you're putting into the world as a mom is way more important, because you're building our country for later. You're building a legacy. That job can be taken and she can be on the breadline tomorrow. That's right. So don't get it crooked and side-eyed, understand and know your worth. So it's like, I never can say it enough. Life and death lie in the power of the tongue. What you speak over yourself, yes, that is who you think you are. And Henry Ford said it best: whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So if you think, oh, I can't do that, you're right, sweetheart, you can't. But the moment you say you can, look at how many doors are going to open for you. And it's easier said than done, but it's a mindset, because it's not just you say it, you have to feel it, but you say it first. So you speak it first. When you speak it, it's going to go inside of you.
Yes, live it. You have to actually live it. That
you have to walk
day.
Your talk. Walk your talk.
Sharon, I would call that self-care.
Oh, yes.
Self-care.
And I'm okay being selfish because I come first. Because that helicopter ride that you take, what do they say? Or a plane ride? Put the mask on yourself first. Mm-hmm. When you learn how to put the mask on yourself first, you can help others. And that's how I'm able to do I'm Possible, because I can share my experiences and let people know, you know what? I am so flawed. Now, I will say that's a one I am that I will own. I am flawed. I am not perfect, because I know I am human.
Yes. Yes.
So I will share my story to help others realize that they can too get through this as well. Yes. It is just a test.
It's okay to be flawed. It's okay not to know everything. It is okay to ask for help.
Oh, yes.
Can you help me with this project?
Oh, yes.
Can you help me get my mind straight? So many of us do not ask for help. I am here with Sharon Ringier, who is the creator, the founder of I'm Possible Women's Empowerment Collaborative. Sharon, I followed you on Facebook, and I love what you said: always learning, always growing. Will you close out this conversation with always learning, always growing? What does that look like to you?
Something that my doctor once told me. A friend of mine had asked me, she's like, where I was going. And I told her the doctor I was using for the sarcoidosis. And she's like, oh, I thought he retired. And I'm like, well, no, he's my doctor. So I told him, she was like, oh, she thought you retired. And he goes, oh, it's nice to know she's still around or whatever. I thought she had moved, to a different city. And I'm like, yeah. And I go, so She thought you retired. Were you going to retire? And he goes, let me tell you something. He goes, I enjoy what I do. He goes, and at the end of the day, I will always probably have something to do, because the day you stop working on yourself, and be it a job, because he loved his job, and then he golfs and he sees his grandkids, he goes, but the day I stop working is the day I'll start dying.
Gotcha.
So for me, I feel like the day I stop learning is the day that they're going to be burying me, because every single day I'm learning something new. And I am not that, I mean, I am definitely 25, I'll be celebrating 25 years for my 30th birthday next month. And so I understand that I am not a millennial, but you know what? I am not that person that says, oh, I'm old, I don't get technology, because I hear it all the time. Well, you know me, I don't know. No, I don't know you.
No.
Because for me, it's like, look, as long as my mind is good, I can still learn it. Yes. My father-in-law is 80, he'll be 84. And that man is on Facebook. And matter of fact, he still runs. The guy rides 20 something miles like in one day. So it's like, I look at that and it's like, yeah, I'm going to keep learning. And as I look at him at 80 something, got on my bike today. I rode a half an hour. So it's like I haven't rode in a while. And believe you me, I'm doing that with an autoimmune disease that messes with my joints in the winter.
Yeah.
So we push through. That's what learning is. It's like you push through and you keep going anyway.
Once again, Sharon Ringier, the creator. And I must say, definitely have to compliment you. The creations for your events, various events, I saw them on Facebook and just on the internet. Beautiful. Your event planning skills are impeccable. It's definitely a gift. And so kudos on that.
Thank you.
I really thank you for taking care of the women in back of you, the women at the side of you, your mentees. You have created I'm Possible Women's Empowerment Collaborative Incorporated. I'm Margot Levette, her business, her voice, her conversation. Another awesome conversation here with Sharon Ringier.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for listening to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. Couple of things that I want you to do right now. Go to my website, pick up a copy of Her Business, Her Voice, Her Reinvention, how I went from game show hopping to international show host, author, and speaker in 1 year. Number 2, please freely listen to each and every episode. Share them out with your family, friends, the men in your lives. And then number 3, get in contact with me, one of the experts that have been on the show, because I want to make sure that you reinvent yourself. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode here on Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation.